Known as the largest railroading operation in the world at one point, the Pennsylvania Railroad Altoona Shops created many state-of-the-art components to help revolutionize the rail transportation industry. Now, one of those components was the world-renowned test lab, where engineers designed the iconic K-4 Steam Locomotive, a machine that is near and dear to the hearts of many rail fans and historians around the world.
So by the 1880s, when the routes were established and expanded, the existing motive power fleet was really underperforming. It wasn't large enough to meet the demands of the expanding railroad. They were short on motive power in terms of the actual size of the equipment. They didn't have the horsepower to meet the demands of the ever-growing length of trains or the tonnage of freight trains. And in Europe, they had refined steam locomotive technology in advance of the United States. So a lot of the leaders at that time of the PRR looked to their counterparts in Europe and what they were doing to innovate and develop better steam locomotives. So through that study and traveling to Europe, they were able to implement what essentially the Pennsylvania Railroad established as a test department. And what better place to establish that test department than right here in Altuna because of the pre-existing vast shop complex that was here. They got into the locomotive testing, where in 1904, through a display at the St. Louis Exposition, in the traditional sense you would think of the World's Fairs. It was fairs around the United States where industries such as the railroad would go and demonstrate to the public new technologies and innovations. All kinds of different technologies would be on display, but in particular the railroads established a treadmill spearheaded by the Pennsylvania Railroad, where they would bring in all different types of locomotives from across the country, from different railroads even, and put them on display on a static treadmill where visitors could go in and see them actually testing the performance of operating steam engines within a room. When the exposition closed in 1904, between 1904 and 1906, they transported it to Altuna, to the test department, where they expanded the test department to include the static treadmill, as well as a very big expansion to the motive power development department, where engineering and scientists worked together to develop steam locomotives, which gave way to the development of the K-4 class and the L1 class steam locomotives. So they developed the K-4 to be really the first mainline passenger steam locomotive, with the L1 being its freight counterpart. And in 1914, when both of those locomotives were developed, both prototypes were built, with priority given to the L1 class to be built first during World War I. And you wouldn't see the second K-4 out of 425 locomotives be built until 1918 and later into the 1920s. There were aspects of the K-4 that were very desirable by these other railroads and other engineers. Almost every large steam locomotive and passenger service used or designed by other railroads emulated some aspect of the K-4, even in Europe. The K-4's tractive effort made it very versatile. So its design gave it the speed, but also the versatility to haul longer trains than its predecessor classes. And that meant more money for the railroad. That meant more revenue. If it was able to haul longer trains at a lower cost, at a faster rate, and more reliably, that meant a very positive impact to the bottom line. And that's really why the locomotive class lasted for 40 years in service until the 1950s. And also coincided with why it was never really successfully replaced. The railroad had developed larger locomotives to replace K-4s because as trains became longer, even in the 1930s and 1940s, they would add 2 K-4s to a train. The railroad wanted to design a new locomotive called the T1 class to replace the K-4s, but it was a little bit too late in the game for a number of outside factors, such as the development of diesel-electric locomotives that replaced steam engines. The T1 was the apex of steam innovation and design for the Altoona works. The T1 just did not have the advantages of time on its side. It came too late in the game. It was really an old technology that was being brought into existence when a new technology, such as the diesel-electric locomotives, would be replacing it. They were cost-effective, required less maintenance, and had more attractive effort. Here at the museum, when we talk about restoring K-4 1361, we want to bring back that nostalgia. Hear the whistle blow, hear the steam, the smell, the coal burning, soot, and just see the drama of steam railroading and its glory, and show society what it was like to live back in those days, but also to highlight the accomplishments that our ancestors were able to do with the employment through the Pennsylvania Railroad.
The Railroaders Memorial Museum is in possession of the only remaining rail-worthy K-4 steam locomotive in the world. They're currently in a fundraising phase for the restoration effort. If you'd like to make a contribution to bring this rare piece of railroad history back to life, please visit railroadcity.org for more information.